Hello, I'm Linda Kincaid. There is much more of Quest Means Business in a moment when I'll be speaking to Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister about how his country is recovering 1 year on from a national uprising. And a decades-old icon is making a major comeback thanks to a new film. How Barbie is becoming big business. Before that, these are the headlines this hour. US House lawmakers have passed a controversial military funding bill by a mostly party-line vote. Conservative Republicans added amendments related to abortion policy, transgender healthcare, and diversity and inclusion programs. The bill now heads to the Democrat-controlled Senate. Meantime, US President Biden's administration says it's providing $39 billion worth of student loan relief. It says the move will cancel student debt for some 800,000 people, provided they meet certain criteria. It comes after the Supreme Court struck down Mr. Biden's previous student loan forgiveness plan. New York police have arrested a suspect in connection with serial killings that have baffled law enforcement for more than a decade. Rex Huaman, a registered architect, just pleaded not guilty in a Long Island courtroom. He's charged with murder over the deaths of 3 women whose bodies were found in Ajigo Beach in 2010. Actor Kevin Spacey was back in court Friday for his sexual assault trial in London. The court finished its cross-examination of the Hollywood star and heard from 2 witnesses. A total of 4 men have accused Spacey of sexual offences. He denies all 12 charges against him. Well, the Kremlin appears to be doing all it can to downplay the role of the private army that briefly rebelled against Moscow last month. Today's spokesman Dmitry Peskov said the Wagner Group was never a legal entity. He was doubling down on what his boss, President Putin, said Thursday, that Wagner does not exist. He made the comment while discussing the meeting he had with the mercenary group's leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, in the days after that attempted coup. Jill Doherty is a CNN contributor and an adjunct professor at the Georgetown University. She joins us now from Washington, D.C. Great to have you with us, Jill.
Hey, Linda.
So Wagner does not exist, at least not legally. That's according to Putin's latest statement. What exactly does that mean?
Okay, well, technically, he may be correct. And I think what the president is doing is, he takes his legal hat, puts it on, because he is actually a trained lawyer. And what he's saying is, physically, it may exist. Wagner exists. However, legally in Russia, it does not, because it is illegal to have a private military contractor. In other words, mercenaries. So he's kind of drawing a line. But I think what he's doing, and especially in that interview, you can see it, he's trying to separate Wagner as a group of fighters who, even though they've been very brutal, have been effective, from Prigozhin, who, after all, was their leader and who carried out that insurrection against the Kremlin, against senior military leaders. He's trying to separate those. He needs Wagner, but he certainly doesn't need Prigozhin and anything that Prigozhin might do in the future.
And that it's interesting what he said, Jill, given the fact that Putin has now named Andrei Trozhev as the new Wagner commander. How is it possible that he could name a new leader for this group that he says doesn't legally exist? And what do we know about this former Russian colonel?
Well, he can do it because he is President Putin. That's an easy answer. But really, the commander that he's talking about, and he actually didn't use his name, he used his nickname, which is the gray-haired one, Sidoy, the gray-haired guy. And he said, they could fight under this commander. He's commanded them for 16 months. So who is he? Andrei Trozhev is, I believe, 61 years old, had a storied career in the military. He's a retired colonel, got a lot of awards, served in Afghanistan, served during the Chechen wars, and then also in Syria. After he retired, he was with Wagner in Syria. And you have to say that he's, no doubt, very loyal to the Kremlin, and also seems like a pretty savvy guy who could keep the Wagner fighters in line for the Kremlin.
Because it leads to another question I've got for you, Jill, is what sort of impact this failed mutiny has had on Putin and his hold on power?
Well, I think it has raised enormous questions about his leadership, because here we are weeks later, and he's coming out and trying to explain what happened at that meeting 5 days after the mutiny. And I think what he's trying to do is to say, in fact, in that interview, he actually said it, Linda. He said, I think average Russians, the Russian people understand very simply what happened. These were good fighters, but they got dragged into this. And so I think what he's trying to say, again, preserve those fighters because they're useful to the Kremlin, and then somehow solve Prigozhin. But it's very schizophrenic, and it's been back and forth, which undermines his image as a leader. And just the last thing that happened was we have video from the Belarusian defense minister showing Wagner fighters in Belarus training the territorial guards. So what does that mean? That was the original deal. Maybe some of them took it. It's all really continuing to be very confusing. And I think that really does undermine Putin and his image.
Yeah, it certainly does. But we appreciate you providing some sort of clarity on what on earth is going on. Jill Doherty, good to have you with us. Thank you. Well, it has been 1 year since protesters in Sri Lanka stormed the presidential palace. We're going to hear from the Foreign Affairs Minister on what Sri Lanka has been doing to recover from its economic collapse.